Why? All right, folks, so today we are going to take my venerable Ludwig Black Beauty and we are going to do a few kind of standard modifications or upgrades to try and make it sound even better than it already did. If you've seen my Black Beauty review, you know that this is one of my absolute favorite drums of all time, that it's kind of a Swiss Army drum, that I feel like it can kind of work in any situation, and that it just always sounds good. Now, one thing I did mention in that review is that I thought one of the weak points of the drum was the factory wires that it comes with. I feel like they're a little bit chintzy. I kind of understand where Ludwig is coming from. I think it's kind of the same wires they've been using forever, so there's sort of the history component to it, but regardless, I still think that is a good point for upgrade. So what we're gonna do to try and make this snare sound better is we're going to first of all replace the stock heads. That's kind of an obvious one. I think the Ludwig stock heads actually do sound really good, but I have had them on since I've owned this drum, and you can clearly see that they are worn and ready to be replaced. So I'm going to use my snare heads of choice, which would be Remo Coated Ambassador on top and a Hazy Ambassador on bottom. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to change out those stock snare wires with Vic Firth Vintage Snappy 20s. These are wires that are actually made by Canopus for Vic Firth. So we're essentially getting Canopus wires, which are very high-end, not expensive, but very premium, very good snare wires that seem to work with any snare. And then when we do that, we're also going to take off those plastic straps that are holding the snare wires on that I don't really like, and we are going to replace that with Grosgrain ribbon. So what I'll do is I'll just show you what the snare sounds like right now, the way I've got it set up just walking into my practice room today. I'll just play it for you for a minute, and then I will give you a slow-mo montage changing all the components, and then we'll see what it sounds like afterwards, and I'll check back in. But real quick before we get into the back-to-back, I'm not setting out to make this a direct one-to-one comparison. I'm not using the TuneBot to check that my tuning is exactly the same. I'm just kind of going by feel. I kind of always tune a snare sort of medium-high. That's typically where I'll keep it. So I'm going to try and get roughly the same tuning, but just bear in mind that what you hear afterwards is not going to be the exact same snare wire tension, all the same as before. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now that we've heard before and after, let me just tell you what it sounds like in the room here. I'm not exactly sure how it's translating through the microphones, but in the room, all of those changes had basically the effect I would have expected, which is that there's a lot more high end, there are a lot more overtones, and both of those are elements that you would expect changing from a worn out, dead sort of head to a new head that has a lot of life in it. So again, more high end, so it feels like there's more, sizzle or snap or crack or, whatever adjective you want to use. It's got more high end information, and then I hear more overtones as well. Now for some of you, and again, I don't know how this comes through on the audio, but for some of you, this may sound like a bad thing. You may like the kind of controlled, deader sound of the old heads, but bear in mind, we can always take those overtones out with muffling or with a little piece of tape, but we can't put them back into the drum. And one of the main things that I love about the Black Beauty is that even though we have quite a lot of overtones right now, they all sound good to my ears. They don't sound weird or annoying, or they don't distract from the sound of the rest of the drum set. They sound like they're almost in tune with the drum, if that makes any sense, which I know it doesn't. But they all have like a nice spread. The overtones have a nice spread that I feel like just add to the overall liveliness of the drum. Again, not my best explanation, but hopefully that makes sense to some of you. So obviously these are upgrades that you can do on any drum. It doesn't have to be a Black Beauty. You can always change your heads and you can always change your snare wires. Like I said, the Vic Firth Snappy 20s are snare wires that always seem to work for me. And then changing out that plastic strap to something else like Grosgrain ribbon, I also think is kind of a minor tweak that is helpful in a lot of situations. I know pure sounds are popular wires. Those are not my favorites, but I know they seem to work well for a lot of people. So yeah, just a couple quick tweaks that you can do to any snare to make it sound better, even the already amazing sounding Black Beauty. So hopefully this was of some interest to some of you. Just a quick video here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.